I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, hello. This is Christine Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about the FEMA scandal. And I know it's a couple days old, but again, I was at Comic-Con when all that stuff was kind of breaking, when Daily Wire broke that story. And of course, it was affirmed by FEMA, and they're trying to, they did fire the woman who was issuing people to, skip Trump houses, but she actually went on Roland Martin's program and said, this is not unique to me. This is just what what FEMA tells us to do when there's hostile, places, and there was hostile folks who had Trump signs, and this is not just something that happened in this area, but it happened in the Carolinas too. So I would not be surprised if there was more folks coming out, more whistleblowers saying, yeah, we got different orders to not go to Trump houses and stuff. So somebody is not being honest, or somebody, she's not willing to just lie down and take all the blame, but she's pointing upwards, and the truth is somewhere out there. So we'll talk about her statement and the scandal in general. Also, there's been stories about how much the Harris campaign put out. We know they raised $1 billion and burned through $1 billion 100 days, and they ended their campaign being $20 million in debt. And they spent the money in the most irresponsible sort of ways. They really focused on buying off influencers and paying them to push propaganda in real life and on TikTok and other places. But they also got all these celebrities out there, and so people raised their eyebrows when there was a report that Oprah got $1 million. Now, it wasn't paid directly into Oprah's pocket, but her company was paid, 2 payments, of $500,000 each that, came out to be a cool $1 million. How funny it is that that was the exact dollar amount. So she's denying that she was paid, but if you're out there trying to save democracy, it just seems strange that, I don't know, that you're getting paid rather than you contributing like an in-kind contribution. So all it seems a little fishy. And Trump is on the move, of course, with his appointments, and he's moving very, very quickly. So we'll touch on those things today. But before you jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost to stream and run my website, all that stuff, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. Watching on YouTube, you guys can do super chats. So I thank you for all of you who watch and view and comment and share and all that stuff, and those of you who go the extra mile. But the best way to donate is to directly go to the website. You guys can also check out different merch that's available at the site as well. We got different teas that you guys can check out and get. And I do also have different books that you guys can check out as well. If you go to blacktnews.com, also there's a link in the description that'll take you to my Amazon page where some of the stuff is at. But I have 18 books that are published all together, and I'm just reaching over so I can pull up one. This is the last fiction book that I put out. It's a sequel to My Dark Mermaid. It's called The Sea Witch, so that's available. And I also have, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. I have a second edition that's out now, so you guys can pick that up on Amazon. Covers rights, science, religion, etc., etc. There was someone today that was in my TikTok videos talking about when life begins, or not when life begins, but what they consider to be life. And they're like, as a Christian, I know that it's not actually a baby until 24 weeks, which I thought was wild. And the reasoning was that they didn't think that the development really started for the baby to be able to live outside the womb until 24 weeks, which is wild because babies earlier than 24 weeks can survive outside of the womb. So that's the metric. You would think that her argument would be like 20 weeks, not like 24. Usually when people say 24 weeks, they're talking about viability, but even again, that starts earlier. Or they'll say consciousness, which, we we don't know exactly when that happens anyway. And there's strong arguments against that as well. But it was just the most bizarre argument. But I'm like, why did you even throw in the part about being a Christian in there? Like, if you're a Christian, an abortion is a termination of an image bearer of God, who we are actually called to love as we love ourselves. Is the second greatest commandment. So if you want to say, well, you don't think that it's a life, well, what's most important is, does that life matter to God? Is that a being who is made in his image, that he loves and has called or can call and have a relationship in the womb with? And obviously that answer is yes. So who are you to question the value of someone that God made? So it was a very bizarre argument. Very bizarre argument. And we were talking about, I guess I did bring up religious liberty, but I didn't bring up religion in the sense of it relating to abortion, because I did mention that Kamala Harris wanted to make Christians, you know, participate in abortion, and I mentioned her bigotry on other issues and stuff. But it was just bizarre to me. So, you know, if you need some help out there to get your facts straight or whatever, you guys can pick up. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion. Anyway, let's hop to it. I want to show you guys this video of a gathering with Jill and Kamala, because it's frosty. People are noting how frosty this is. And it's funny. It's really funny. And at first, when I was seeing people talk about it, I was like, "Oh, are people exaggerating?" Like, I saw like the image of Jill not looking at Kamala, and she's looking like straight forward. But I didn't realize I didn't watch the video at first, and when I saw the video, I'm like, "Ooh, that is really frosty." So I was asked on a live the other day, did I think there was any significance to Jill wearing a red dress? Maybe there was a significance to wearing the dress. That doesn't mean that that she was actually going to not vote for Kamala, or that she was secretly voting for Trump. But she could have went ahead and just left it blank. That's also a possibility too. So but this is frosty, guys. So I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but it's real cold out there, guys. So let me turn this music down before I get flagged or something. But she's shaking hands and stuff, and then you just see Jill there, and she's just straight on, like, not addressing as she comes up, and she shakes hands with other people. Jill just does not move, doesn't get up for a little kissy kiss, because doesn't Jill like to kiss on the mouth or whatever? I don't. So, yeah, just like dead on straight, and It just seems frosty if you were speculating on how public appearances are. um I would not be surprised at all about Jill and Biden hating Kamala and Doug and being mad at Obama and all this stuff. Um, Biden probably feels so strongly that he probably could have won. He still gets the feather in his cap about, having the most votes ever, which doesn't have anything to do with him. I mean, there are people who'll be like, there, it's because he cheated. But really, the pandemic, it just made things so different as far as people going out and getting the ballots. And there was there was such pressure to do that too in the mail-in. There's 2020 itself, that election was a huge outlier. I don't know if we'll have one quite like it because, you know, these numbers, I mean, they're higher than they were in 2016, and they are higher than you know 2008, but they're closer to it, as far as Kamala's performance. Now there was a map. Let me I show you this map. There was a map that people were pushing the last week after the election to say, like, why was there so many more blue votes in 2020, to say, like, evidence like, oh, you guys just made up all the votes that were there and so on. And other folks were like, they're not done counting ballots, particularly in California. Like, just chill. There's more votes out there. So now that more votes have been counted, uh, it looks, more about what it was. So she still got less than Joe, obviously. Um, but it's not the dramatic drop that it was from 2020 to what it is now. But Trump still got more in his numbers, and I think a lot of that obviously has to do with them, expanding their base, and also really focusing on early voting in a way that they didn't in 2020. Trump discouraged people from voting early and really killed the absentee program, for which Republicans, it was pretty decent. And I wonder if Trump hadn't discouraged people, would they have been able to still pull out, the victory by those numbers back in 2020? But I don't know. I know people have been hurting over the past 4 years, but electorally, Trump is in a really good position right now because they're going to have the whole full government, with the House and the Senate became official, uh, projection yesterday that, yes, Republicans were going to be able to keep the House. So he has both forms of government under his belt. He's probably going to make some big legislative wins, definitely do a lot of executive orders, definitely confirm some judges and stuff. They were quick, with pushing all that through. And he will probably replace two justices, maybe. I would assume Clarence Thomas and maybe Alito too are going to retire. It's probably better to do it sooner rather than later, while they have control of the Senate. So he's going to have a really busy first 2 years, really, really busy. And we'll see what happens as far as the midterms, because midterms, the country usually doesn't like keeping, the full trifecta. So if there's something that's really pressing, he needs to knock it out again sooner rather than later. But Biden is probably TO'd because he probably feels like, I got more votes than anyone else in history. I'm the only person who's ever defeated Donald Trump, and they pushed me out, and it was embarrassing, and I didn't want to get pushed out. And they blew the whole thing. They blew it. They focused on the wrong thing. She can't talk. She's not good at interviews and so on. And she was a terrible candidate, but they wanted apparently somebody else. Like, the rumors are that Obama wanted somebody else and Nancy Pelosi and then wanted somebody else. But once Joe Biden endorsed Kamala, it really just kind of cleared the path for her. So I don't know if that was his final, you know, bleep you moment, or I don't know, it could have been a deal that she made, like, you have to endorse me or I'm going to do the 25th Amendment. I don't know. We're speculating. But we know that he wanted to stay in and was fighting for it very hard. And no doubt probably feels like he could have won. Now, in the climate that Americans are in, he wasn't going to be able to turn that out with the economy. One of the top videos that I have on TikTok was a video where Biden was talking about the economy, and he was saying that people have money. They're just upset that they have to spend more. And people were so angry in my comments from across the aisle because they're like, is the money in the room with us now, Joe? We ain't got no money. We're like, what are you talking about? And it got about 3 million views on TikTok. So that people were not feeling the economy. So it was definitely a change election. People didn't like what was going on as far as our foreign policy. So it was definitely a change election on that. Plus all the radical stuff that the Democrats were doing. And that's a wound that they gave themselves, And it was going to be hard for any Democrat, I think, to really win in this climate. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been impossible for, I don't know, Whitmer or somebody else to pull it out, but Kamala replacing Biden, that didn't really make a lot of sense. I know they were really trying to save the House seats and the Senate seats and so on because they thought Biden would be a drag on the ticket. But I think people would, once it was clear that they weren't going to replace him, people probably would have snapped back in line, and supported their guy. Trump still would have won, but at least I guess they'd all be pointing the finger at Joe rather than I guess they're still pointing the finger at Joe because they're still saying that he should have gotten out earlier. And I feel that's unfair. And the reason why I feel that's unfair is because they knew about his condition. They knew he wasn't a spring chicken. And they covered for him. They covered for him and lied to the American people and lied to the media. And the media lied as well all of this time. So you can't be mad about Joe not getting out when no one had the moral courage to reveal that the emperor had no freaking clothes. So that is an L that all of them have to own together. So people saying that Joe should have got out, you didn't make him get out. You didn't pressure him to get out. You covered for him. So I don't want to hear any of that garbage. All of you own that L. All of you own it. But beyond that, Biden shouldn't have run again. So you could blame him for running again, but at the same time, there was no pressure for him to not run. I mean, there's some people who kind of murmured and complained a little bit, but they were never going to give this man a serious primary challenge. That's one reason why Kennedy ran independent, because they weren't allowing anyone to make a real challenge. So he decided to do his own thing. And they could have said, hey, you said you're going to be a transitionary figure. You're very up there in age. We don't think this will be good for our down ballot. And in the interest of the party and the country as a whole, because apparently we think Donald Trump's a fascist. So in the interest of the country as a whole, we have to make sure that we go ahead and run someone who can win. We're going to go ahead and primary you. And if you don't want to be primaried, then you can just drop out. You can announce that you're not going to run again. But they didn't do that. They didn't have the courage to do that. So again, they can own the L. They all got in the same sinking ship together. Same sinking ship. So yeah, people are pointing the fingers at Joe. But when you point your finger, there's other fingers pointing back at you. And so I think that is a situation with this. Now, Kamala Harris, of course, she was a uniquely bad candidate. She's a really bad retail politician. She can't speak very well. Her record is super radical, and she couldn't run from him because so much of it is on video and on, and you can just play it again and again and again and have it be in an ad. She was never going to win. Now, I did think that there were obstacles and could be challenges, and so many Democrats flipped their switch. They knew she wasn't a good candidate, and they started lying to themselves, and the media started lying to themselves and lying to the American people because that was their person who they got to replace Joe Biden. So they were going to lie through their teeth. And she did offer some challenges in some respects, but obviously they couldn't pull it together. And it is so funny to me that I've seen so many videos from Democrat after Democrat after Democrat trying to give some kind of analysis about why she failed, and they can't see themselves in the failure. They can't just accept that the things that she represents are things that the American people rejects, and those are things that a lot of them share, those really progressive values. It was a rejection of that. Like, I saw someone say that the reason why she lost was because she started listening to Wall Street and started adjusting her messages, and she should have kept running on price gouging and whatever. And I'm like, grocery stores make 2% as far as their margin. How much money do you think they should be allowed to make if they're only making like 2% margin? What you're going to do is, if you keep pushing and saying that eggs have to be a certain thing and bread has to be a certain thing, and it gets to a point where it's too expensive for stores to really sell that stuff, what you're going to do is push out any mom and pop grocery stores that there are and make it so that there's only big box stores who have the shelf space to make up the cost in other areas. So there's all kinds of different reasons why price gouging is bad, and or the policies or stuff that she was pushing, going after grocery stores and so on, weren't going to work out. And people were noting that, she's trying to deny being a Marxist or communist or whatever, and she's leading with price gouging or price controls. It's not a good move. It's not a good look. And but they're like, she should have been more progressive. You know, it, they don't see themselves. They don't see themselves as a problem. And on one hand, it's good news because if they don't, get it together, Republicans are going to keep winning. But at the same time, there's always going to be areas where there are Democrats in charge, and I'd rather them not be crazy. Like, I'm in Oakland County in Michigan, and right now it's blue. It wasn't always blue, but now it's blue, and it keeps getting bluer. And I don't want there to be crazy people. If they have to be Democrats in charge, I don't want them to be crazy. So I would like them to get some perspective, even if that means they're competitive with Republicans. I don't want to fear that my life is going to just be, tossed upside down if the party I don't like gets in charge. I'd rather know that maybe they're going to do some things I don't agree with, but, my rights and other things will be on the line. I'd like to get to that sort of place. So I don't want these people to be crazy. I think it's in America's best interest that everyone just abandons the really radical stuff, and that we learn to talk to each other, we learn to engage, and have good faith conversations. But a lot of people don't even understand that they're not even talking in good faith. Like, there's this one person on TikTok, and I want to say, I don't know if it's a Call Her Daddy girl. It's someone who has like millions of followers. Let me Google it real quick because it might have been her, but I don't know. It kind of looked like her. Uh, nope, that wasn't her. It was somebody else. It was somebody else who has a really high follower count on TikTok, and they just wanted to know, like, hey, women, if you voted for Trump, why did you vote for Trump? And so she started listing different things that she didn't like. And as a woman, she's like, I'm not surprised that men voted, but as a woman, like, how could you support Trump for appointing different justices that made reproductive health care, they wanted to take away reproductive health care and make it less safe for women. Now, it's hard to have a conversation, not impossible, but it's hard to have a genuine conversation with people when they can't talk and think beyond their own rhetoric. Like, you can't understand women on the other side who might disagree with you because you won't be honest about what you're even saying. You won't be honest about the words that are leaving your mouth. Reproductive health care? We're having a conversation who's already been about someone who's already been reproduced and unaliving them. And you're talking about safety. The whole purpose of the procedure is to not be safe. It's to have someone who dies at the end of it. So of course there are many people who don't share your worldview that it's okay to do that. So can we like at least have a conversation? Like, you don't understand as a woman why people would support Donald Trump when they kick the decision back to the states so people can decide it, on a local level rather than it being this federal edict where you have uh this ruling that prevents states from saving the lives of children via, I mean, before like the third trimester. Most Americans don't even think abortion should be legal past 15 weeks. Do you know how developed? Go Google a baby at 15 weeks in the womb. Very developed. And that's what overturned Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision. It was a 15-week ban. But you can't even call it what it is because abortion is too taboo. So they call it reproductive freedom. And they call it healthcare when we're having a conversation about homicide. And people might think that that's a really aggressive term, but that's what it is. It literally is, if we want to be precise with our language. But every time we have a conversation about abortion, we are talking about a conversation about a woman being able to have a special privilege to unalive her child. And we have to discuss whether she should be allowed to do that or not. That's the conversation, not they're going to make it unsafe for us to engage in reproductive health care. That's all jargon. It's all jargon. Let's get past that and actually have a conversation about why people may feel differently than you about it, which if you say what it is, it seems kind of obvious that not everyone will be on board. And again, Donald Trump wanted to kick it to the states, wanted to take it off the table, didn't even want it to be an issue. And they kept bringing it up again and again and again and again. He might as well have been like pro-life or whatever, because they lied about his position the whole entire time. The whole entire time. So she also mentioned, like, as a woman, like, how can you support him when all these people, accused him of sexual assault? And the thing is, well, okay, are the accusations credible? Because I'm old enough to remember when Brett Kavanaugh was accused of being like a part of gang rape trains, and they were reporting that on CNN and all kinds of different nonsense. There's at least like 3 like major accusations or whatever. And then there was the main one was a Christine Blasey Ford, who didn't have a date, time, and location, and everyone involved in it said that it didn't happen. But this almost not only derailed his Supreme Court nomination, it almost derailed his life. That was incredibly tough for him to go through and incredibly tough for us to watch as a nation. So when people talk about accusations against men, you want women to be supported as they try to seek justice for themselves, but you have to have proper due process for men. And then the next point she made was, the Trump administration is going to make it harder for women to report sexual harassment and stuff on college campuses. And that's not true, but it is the case that the Biden-Harris administration and the Obama administration made it harder for men to get a fair chance on college campuses when they are accused of sexual assault. So there are men who would lose, be kicked out of school before they even got to see that the accusations against them were false. So that's not right. So if you're going to say, well, as a woman who's a mother of daughters, well, okay, well, mothers have sons as well, and they don't want lies to derail their child's life. So that's why due process is so important. But Kamala Harris represents, I think, government corruption, really. If you look at her history in California, and then some of the, things going on in the Biden administration now. So anyway, let's turn to the main argument, I guess, of the day, or the main story that I want to go over. Now, again, this is something that came out a couple days ago, and God bless the Daily Wire for getting this story together. And my sister, no, I don't think she sent it to me. I think I actually found it first. And I'm reading through it, and my mouth is just like dropped because it's so terrible that this is kind of where we're at. Though I shouldn't be surprised, or people shouldn't be surprised, because back in the Obama administration days, there were conservatives who were targeted and discriminated against when it came to the IRS, and that was a really big scandal. Obama, like, people are like, like to say that Obama didn't have any scandals besides wearing a tan suit. That's not true. Obviously, there was Fast and Furious. There was him, his administration spying on journalists. That was one the journalists were pretty upset about. But the IRS scandal was a pretty big one. And then, of course, there's Benghazi as well. They had more than one scandal. It was more than just, the thing about the tan suit. But this is pretty bad, especially because people were reporting that they weren't getting the kind of help that they needed. It was something that was going around social media that people were saying it, and Trump was saying that there were Republicans who weren't getting enough care, and New York Times and other folks said that Trump was wrong. They said that he was wrong and it was a conspiracy. And now we have this information that came out that proves that not only were there Republicans not getting the care that they needed, that they purposely were being singled out and not getting the proper care that they needed in this disaster. So this woman who did it was fired, and she's really pushing back now as well, saying that basically, I guess, other folks are directed to do similar things, which I've seen other people like say that they were trained with FEMA and stuff and certified, and that's not true, which, the kind of things that they're saying as far as how you should act. But she's not going down without a fight. So I want to go over the story that they reported, and then we'll look at a little bit of the interview with Roland Martin that the FEMA official had with him. Exclusive: FEMA official ordered relief workers to skip houses with Trump signs. This information was coming from whistleblower. A federal disaster relief official ordered workers to bypass the homes of Donald Trump supporters as they surveyed damage caused by Hurricane Milton in Florida, according to internal correspondence obtained by the Daily Wire and confirmed by multiple federal employees. A FEMA supervisor, and by the way, FEMA did, come back and affirm that this is what happened. A supervisor told workers in a message to avoid homes advertising Trump as they canvassed Lake Placid, Florida, to identify residents who could qualify for federal aid. Internal messages viewed by the Daily Wire reveal the supervisor, Marnie Washington, relayed this message both verbally and in a group chat used by relief team. Multiple government employees told the Daily Wire. I was floored that they put it in a group chat. Now, Washington, the woman, she makes it seem like this is a normal thing that is a policy and that there'll be more cases and stuff like that. Like, she didn't do anything out of the ordinary. So maybe that's why they felt comfortable putting in a group chat. But I was just like, this is bizarre as far as like evil mastermind here. The government employees told the Daily Wire that at least 20 homes with Trump signs or flags were skipped from the end of October and into November due to the guidance, meaning they were not given the opportunity to qualify for FEMA assistance. Images shared with Daily Wire show that houses were skipped over by the workers who wrote in the government system messages such as Trump sign no entry per leadership. It is unclear whether the same guidance was issued elsewhere in the country. The employees were part of the Department of Homeland Security Surge Capacity Force team, meaning they volunteered from other DHS agencies to help an understaffed FEMA as it has dealt with the second major hurricane in a span of just a few weeks. So it says implement best practice, not one goes anywhere alone. Avoid homes advertising Trump. Practice, de-escalation, preventative measures, etc., etc. So that's pretty messed up, guys. I know they're short-staffed. I thought we could go help and make a difference, one of the employees said. When we got there, we were told to discriminate against people. It's almost unbelievable to think that somebody in the federal government would think that's okay. Unfortunately, it's unbelievable, but it's totally it's totally believable at the same time where it's unbelievable, like, you would get caught to put that on paper. How could you be so evil at a time when people need relief and at the same time, people are so blinded by their biases and stuff that you shouldn't be surprised, I guess. So it's surreal, I guess. The employee said it felt wrong to discriminate against Trump supporters when they were at their most vulnerable. I volunteered to help disaster victims, not discriminate against them, the employee said. It didn't matter if people were black, white, Hispanic, for Trump, for Harris. Everyone deserves the same amount of help. The guidance came as the Biden administration was criticized over its sluggish response to Hurricane Helene in rural areas across the country. In Rowan Mountain, Tennessee, for example, locals told the Daily Wire it took nearly 2 weeks for FEMA to show up. The town is located in Carter County, which voted 81% for Trump on Tuesday. And again, Trump was saying that there are people who were Republicans who weren't getting the help that they needed. The FEMA agents ordered not to help the houses with Trump signs were operating in Highlands County, a deep red area located in south central Florida that backed Trump by 70%. On Tuesday, it was hit with tornadoes, um, rain and wind and flooding and when Milton hit in October. In the chat, Washington said that it would be the best practice to avoid homes advertising Trump. According to photos and messages viewed by the Daily Wire, no explanation was given for this guidance, which included other recommendations like telling workers to practice de-escalation and preventative measures to avoid high salt diets and coffee. Um, Photos from the system used by federal relief workers to track what homes they visit showed that relief workers followed Washington's guidance. Several addresses were marked not able to access property with listed explanations such as Trump sign no entry per leadership, no stop, Trump flag, Trump sign, and Trump sign no contact per leadership. So people actually marked this in the system. If they had damage or lost power over 36 hours, it was my duty to inform them of benefits to which they were entitled through FEMA, one team member wrote in a complaint filed to DHS about the guidance. Washington is a disaster survivor. Assistance crew leader for Highland County, a leadership chart reviewed by the Daily Wire shows she did not respond to multiple phone calls or an email seeking comment on the guidance. Chad Hershey, Washington's FEMA supervisor, told Daily Wire that the agency is looking into the situation. We are aware of it and we are taking proper action in this situation currently, Hershey said. Pressed to confirm the messages, Hershey said, we are aware of it and we are taking action at this moment regarding the situation that you're talking about. Hershey added that FEMA would be providing a fuller statement, though none has been provided by press time. He said that officials in Washington, D.C. would be reaching out to the Daily Wire. After publication of the story of FEMA, a spokesperson told the Daily Wire it was deeply disturbed and horrified by the employee's actions and that it has taken extreme actions to correct the situation. While we believe this is an isolated incident, we have taken measures to remove the employee from their role and are investigating the matter to prevent this from happening again. The spokesperson said in an email statement the employee who issued this guidance had no authority and was given no direction to tell teams to avoid these homes. We are reaching out to the people who may have not been reached out as a result of this incident. This is a matter that we take extremely seriously, and we are doing everything we can to make sure. How do they know all these people who, well, I guess they have the marked houses in the system because, if they were just going by who had Trump flags and signs and stuff, the election is over, people do remove those things. I mean, some people have their Trump flags out all year and stuff, and maybe we'll have them present for the next 4 years. Maybe they'll get bigger and stuff, depending on how good of a job that he does. But if it's marked in the system that they bypass the different houses for those reasons, then maybe they'll be able to go back and offer them some relief. But I think there needs to be kind of more action than just whatever typical relief that they would normally give, since this is the federal government actually discriminating against them. I would opt for I would get some I mean, if people feel that they have the time and the money or whatever, they might want to invest in getting some legal help to get more than what you should normally get in these situations. Because if they were entitled to different disaster relief and they didn't get it at a time when they needed it, obviously that puts them behind on the 8 ball compared to everyone else. And it's clear cut, discrimination. They said this is a matter we take extremely seriously and we are doing everything we can to make sure all survivors receive support from FEMA. To date, we have helped over 365 thousand households impacted by both hurricanes Helene and Milton in the state of Florida, and have provided over 898 million in direct assistance to survivors. By the way, Ron DeSantis was like, y'all better not delete anything, get rid of anything. He's on the warpath about this, and he will get to the bottom of it. I am absolutely sure. And especially if this spills over into like when Trump takes over. But Ron DeSantis is going to make sure that there is justice done for the people of Florida. He is he's a bulldog with this stuff, and he's definitely very good at managing disasters as far as, the hurricanes and stuff. He is very much about business when that stuff happens. So the idea that people could be doing this to the people of Florida probably burns him up, and he's going to get vengeance. So he's saying, do not delete any of this information because they are gunning for some kind of retribution for these people. I'm certain. So they also said that she wasn't actively working for them, so they did like let her go. They said the guidance was first issued by Washington verbally on October 22nd, and again the group chat on October 27th. According to one federal employees, the Trump-related instructions were deleted from the chat a few days later. Photos of the chat reviewed by the Daily Wire show. Ooh, that doesn't look good when you got to start deleting your messages, man. By October 30th, Washington has started walking back the instructions about skipping Trump supporters' homes. One of the federal employees told the Daily Wire the relief worker said Washington denied that homes were being skipped after a meeting with other FEMA administrators. So this seems pretty different than what you was saying to Roland Martin. The employees say that Washington has not been punished for the guidance, but has been shifted to another county in Florida. From my understanding, I think they let her go after this anyway. The whistleblower complaint says that the Trump guidance further undermines trust in FEMA and its response to the hurricanes. This behavior raises significant concerns, discrimination against the United States citizens because of their political views. A copy of the complaint obtained by the Daily Wire said these actions not only undermine the integrity of our agency and create a hostile work environment for those who may hold differing political beliefs, but they also threaten the very democracy of our country. So that was the article from the Daily Wire about that. And there was an interview that Washington had with Roland Martin about this stuff. Now, what is interesting about some of the coverage is that they, in different articles like CBS and so on, they wouldn't have the actual picture of the woman. They'd have a picture of like a white woman who I guess is maybe higher up in FEMA or whatever, but they wouldn't have a picture of the black woman who discriminated. And I wouldn't want people to wrongly believe that the guidance was done by that white woman. And it just seemed like they're playing a little bit of games there. But regardless, let's go ahead and watch this snippet of this interview from this FEMA official. And she's, not just sitting down and taking the blame. Oh, sorry.
These actions were made on my stating that I was fired. They all alleged that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage. FEMA always preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. So this is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance, not just in the state of Florida, but you will find avoidance in the Carolinas. Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask the DSA crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports stating that I was fired.
Oh,
They all
so that's pretty interesting. So she's giving the impression that there could be more reports about this, and this is like a general sort of policy when there's hostile folks. So the accusation is that they're Trump people who say stuff like "I hate FEMA" and so on. So rather than deal with those people and maybe de-escalating the situation, they just opt to just avoid them, and that's just how FEMA operates. Um, and I can believe that there are Trump supporters who were kind of hot and saying like I don't like FEMA, especially with all the rhetoric that was going around at the time. So just a life rule for folks like I was having this conversation a couple weeks ago with some people, but you kind of don't bite the hand that's supposed to feed you in situations. So if FEMA was coming up to help folks, you might want to be like, we hate FEMA. You might want to be like, oh, thank you for being here. Yeah, I do need assistance, and be a little more gracious. But I'm saying that just to say that I'm not excusing what happened. Obviously, let's say, which someone else had pointed this out on X, saying, what if there were some hostile people who were just a group of black folks, and someone said, hey, we're going to put out this warning to just kind of avoid black people in the neighborhood because we're getting a lot of negative activity from black people, so we just want to make sure that we avoid them, and do avoidance rather than the de-escalation, because that's our policy. People would say, well, that is very offensive and very discriminatory. Yeah, it is. And I know that race isn't the same as like having a particular political ideology. And just because you vote for Trump doesn't mean that you have a particular ideology either. It just could just mean you didn't like Kamala Harris and you'd rather him win. One of my sisters, she asked for a Trump sign, and she did vote for him, don't get me wrong, but it definitely didn't like Kamala Harris. But the main reason why she wanted a Trump sign in her lawn is because she was sick of how many people were coming up to her door to campaign, and get data or whatever to try to convince her to vote for, really, really left wing stuff. And we're like, well, you're the demographic that they want. It was, in a county that they were trying to be competitive in, and she's a young black woman, so they probably thought that she was going to be in the bag for them, so they wanted to make sure that they could check her off their list. So she's like, I want, like, give me a Trump sign so these people know not to knock on my door anymore. So there's all kinds of reasons why people would actually put up a Trump sign beyond just pure enthusiasm for the man, um deciding that these people who need relief, that you're just going to avoid them, was obviously a bad call. But she's saying that it's not just her making it, that this is a policy decision at large, and it's not just in Florida, but it'll be in the Carolinas. So I wonder if we'll hear more stories about discrimination from FEMA coming out very soon. Or is this her, going down swinging and just, taking more people with her? Because if she's correct in what she's saying, to some degree, I mean, I think she's trying to save her butt, cover her butt in a lot of ways. But if she's correct that this is more of a epidemic within FEMA, then we'll hear more stories, and there'll probably be more victims or people who was looked over, and more people who are whistleblowers ready to speak out against this. But this is a really disturbing story. I don't know if I know FEMA has spoken out against it and condemned her, you know, but if there's a deeper problem within FEMA, obviously that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed. But I don't know if I've heard Biden or Kamala speak out against this. And this is something that I would like to put, like, party politics aside, and people just to be like, this is sick. We this is America. We have to do better. When people are in need, we have to come together and help them. Because Kamala Harris would say, when I show up and I work for the people, I didn't say, are you a Republican? Or are you a Democrat? And which, I thought that was a hokey story that probably wasn't. I mean, she serves people across the aisle because, but does she operate with no bias? That is laughable. That's absolutely laughable. But that's what she claims. So I would have liked to have heard and seen, some really strong condemnation about that. I do know that the Republicans have some questions for FEMA, so this is going to be a big story for a while. But kudos to the Daily Wire for breaking it. Again, it's really remarkable. Unfortunately, it's not surprising, though it is kind of surprising at the same time. You want to feel better and assume things that are good about humans, and then you hear a story like this that really gets, you're really upset or your blood boiling. But I was just floored when I first read the story, when I was um at Motor City Comic Con and sitting in my booth, and my eyes were getting big. My sister's like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh." FEMA was denying, aid for people with Trump signs in their yard. And I just mentioned how my sister didn't put, she put like a Trump thing in her yard for her reasons or whatever. And their family with 5 kids. Can you imagine? And we don't live in Florida, we live in Michigan, so no hurricanes to worry about. But if she was in a position where she was in that disaster area, again, a family, 5 kids, and they saw that sign in their yard and they're just like, okay, we're going to skip over it, and they wouldn't get that help, that is sickening. It's sickening. So heads need to roll. Heads need to roll. There's that level of discrimination is obviously unwarranted, and it's disgusting. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about Oprah. So we know that um, Kamala Harris raised $1 billion in her campaign. She only her race was like 107 days long and raised $1 billion. It was insane. And the donors were probably eager to throw their money, because at first they were saying, we're going to withhold our money because Joe Biden is going to be bad for the ticket or whatever. So we're not going to pay for anything. You guys got to push him out. And he was successfully pushed out. And then they poured in all this cash, and they knew it was a short campaign. So they needed to like push the influence or whatever around her. Now, it is a bit crazy that so many people don't know her because she is the vice president, but a lot of people don't pay attention to who the vice president is or whatever. But, she is the first, woman of color who's the vice president. So she should be a bigger deal in people's minds. But unfortunately, she's just kind of very bad at speaking and doing her job, and isn't very likable to the American people and to the people who she works with in the White House. So they mostly just kind of bring her out, defrost her for certain occasions, So they needed to, I guess, work to build her image for people to get around. But obviously they just never raised the support that they needed. And most of that has to do with the fact that she was a terrible candidate and people just weren't going to like her overall enough to beat Donald Trump, especially when her policies are trash and so on. But, she spent a lot of money getting celebrities to go to her events, which was a big draw for people. Oh, you're going to hear a free Megan Thee Stallion concert or whatever, oh, come on and come. People thought that Beyonce was going to show up to the DNC. It was this big like scheme, it seemed, from the media, like, there's going to be a special guest who's going to come to the DNC. And they just assumed it was going to be Beyonce, that Beyonce was going to sing and stuff. And of course, Beyonce didn't show up. But Beyonce did show up in Texas for her. And that had a pretty big price tag. Other celebrities came, to different places. Lizzo came to Detroit. And by the way, Lizzo still owes me $5,000. She still owes me $5,000. She issued like a challenge on TikTok. I easily beat it. And she never gave me my $5,000. She totally owes it to me. There's no question about it. But anyway, she brought out all these celebrities, and there were more celebrities that she wanted to bring in, but they ran out of cash. They're $20 million in debt. Raised $1 billion, ended up $20 million in debt. Severely outspent Trump, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. But Oprah, she spoke at the DNC, and she had a special interview and stuff with Kamala Harris. And according to the FEC filings, there were 2 payments to Oprah, Harpo, Productions or whatever it is. And one payment was for $500,000, and there was another one for $500,000. And it's funny how the billing just kind of was so crisp and with all those zeros and stuff. Seems very interesting, almost as if it was agreed upon set amount to do that kind of stuff. Now, Oprah was asked about it, and she denies being paid $1 million. She denies it. And there's some people that are going around saying, there's no evidence. There's no evidence for this claim. There's no evidence for this claim. Okay, but there's the FEC filings. So the claim isn't that Kamala reached out of her own pocket and just handed Oprah $1 million. That's not the claim that people are making. But when you spend $1 million into someone's business, again, that's not you being pocketed. You pocketing money which she doesn't need because she's just so freaking rich anyway. But it's paying some bills there. That's a nice chunk of change for your production company. Now, I said this at the top of the hour. If Trump is such a huge threat to democracy, then why, are there all these payouts and stuff? Why aren't people just showing up? And why isn't your organizations, doing work and making in-kind contributions rather than being paid all of this money to, make some kind of big production so you can go ahead and interview Kamala, which that interview with Oprah didn't serve her, well, because she's just not good at interviews. My sister talked about how, there are different moments in the Oprah interview that when she was just like probably thinking like, oh my gosh, this woman is an idiot. And like, oh my gosh, like this is the wrong horse to back. So if Donald Trump was such a threat, why did so many people need to get paid? Why weren't they investing more in as far as their time and their talent and their ability and their crews or whatever, and make some kind of in-kind contribution to the Harris campaign? Why did everybody get all these payouts? So, I mean, maybe there'll be more detailed filings and stuff that we can see and learn later about the nitty-gritty if they bothered to fill out the stuff more specifically. But as of what we know now, her company was paid $1 million. And unless they think everyone's just faking the FEC filings or whatever, or they misfiled something, just own up to it. Like, again, it's not going directly into her pocket, sure, but that's still her baby. That's still her company. And when you're saving democracy, I don't understand why there's such a high price tag and you guys aren't just all doing that for free. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? I made my videos and stuff and I talk and, persuade or whatever. And, I don't need to be paid to push my sincerely held beliefs. I don't. It's nice when someone donates. It's nice when someone offers you a check or something like that. But I say what I got to say, and whether someone's going to pay for it or not, I guess. But, again, it's to blow through all that money is insane. Absolutely insane. Anyway, Trump is on the move with his administration. And he is already, I don't know if it's official, but all the reports were saying that Marco Rubio was going to be the Secretary of State. Kristi Noem was going to be the DHS secretary. And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know what kind of qualification that she has in that regard. I mean, that she'd be the best person for that particular job. There's been a lot of comments about goats and puppies today. If you're not familiar with that story, Kristi Noem wrote a story in her book about how she killed a puppy that she, according to her, needed to be put down. And then when she got done with the puppy, she had to go kill the goats. And then there was like a stranger or a neighbor or whatever that just like saw her, and there's like just all this blood and death or whatever. So so a lot of people were talking about and referencing when she spoke at the Faith and Freedom Conference. She was the keynote speaker for the dinner that night. Man, there were tables making like cat noises and stuff. I'm sorry, like puppy noises or whatever, and calling her a puppy killer and all kinds of stuff. And I didn't really like that she was the keynote speaker because there was a scandal with the book, and not just really with the puppy, but details that she had obviously embellished. We'll be kind and say that, but even certain things about her record that she was bringing up in her speech, I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. So I didn't appreciate all the things that were untrue coming out of her mouth during the Faith and Freedom conference and stuff. But she was very loyal to Trump and came out early for him in the endorsement. So I'm not surprised that she's getting a position here. You know, I just if she's gonna get one, I don't know about DHS. So I don't know about that one, but it is what it is. Someone said if you don't live on the farm, you won't understand why animals have to be put down. No, it's not that I don't understand why you might have to put an animal down. I don't understand why she put that in her book. I don't understand why she put that in her book. Like, there was supposed to be like a moment to explain why, like, that she can make hard decisions and stuff. But I just, like, if I was an editor or something, I would have been like, I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one. Like, I know that Michael Knowles and some other people had commentary where they were kind of sticking up and stuff for her, but I just, you know, I didn't know about that one. But there are other details in her book where she said stuff that was like not true, and she had to like retract and stuff. So I just there were more scandals surrounding her book other than the puppy situation and the goat situation. But it just seemed like a bizarre thing. They said because it's the way of the life on a farm. Okay. I don't doubt that. It's just, you know, you're writing a political book to for a political point, and that just obviously derailed the conversation. You know, in a way that I'm sure she didn't want it to go. and at a time, I think when she was like hoping that maybe she would be considered for maybe vice presidential material, but after that stuff broke, there was just like no way that the Trump campaign was even going to consider that. But people, I don't know who's going to be Trump's press secretary, but people are trying to push for Scott Jennings is always on CNN, and I wouldn't be opposed to that, though. You know, Kayleigh, I don't see Trump bringing her back. He called her milquetoast after she was like kind of more pro DeSantis or whatever, which he didn't blatantly say, but you could gather that or whatever. And so I don't see her coming back, though she was really, really awesome at that job. I thought all of his press secretaries did a good job, but they just kind of like got better. Like, you know, I didn't think Sean Spicer was bad. Like, maybe his energy was a little too hot. I don't know, but I don't think it was terrible. But he got replaced pretty fast. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders, in my opinion, did a pretty good job. But Kayleigh was like a gangsta like, every day. She was like creme de la creme. Like, I'm not aware of like a press secretary was just like that boss all the time, nonstop. I mean, there are other good press secretaries, don't get me wrong. But then Jen Psaki wasn't that great. And then what they have right now is, you know, is just terrible. I can't believe that Karine was just had that job for so long. She's just so not good at it. But Scott, people are like, you know, saying give it to Scott, give it to Scott, give it to Scott. Scott's so good. I don't know if he'd want that job, but I think he really enjoys, you know, shooting you know, kind of fish in a barrel right now on CNN.
Did people know it? It's overwhelmingly popular. Poll after poll after poll, Americans wanted this policy.
Which policy exactly?
Deportations. And even
mass deportations?
Absolutely. And even Hispanic Americans wanted it. A majority of Hispanic Americans wanted it as well. It's just not controversial. Everybody's trying to make this controversial. It's not controversial. A couple things. Number one, presidents always deport people. Barack Obama deported 3 million people. This is not controversial.
Yeah, actually,
and on top of that, one more issue. There's 1.3 to 1.6 million people who've already received deportation orders from a court. They've already gotten due process. That's a good place to start, not controversial.
Well, to your point about the deportations happening, one of the interesting things is, to your point, Barack Obama deported 2.9 million people in his first term, another 1.9 in his second term. But look at the Trump and Biden numbers. They're almost identical.
Did people know it? It's overwhelming.
Yeah, so they did call Obama the deporter in chief, man. They did call him the deporter in chief. With how many people they deported during his first term. And people, the left is really going to try to revitalize the kids in cages, the separations of the families and all that stuff, and make it the big issue. But what's unfortunate for them is that we have lived through a Biden administration. People were very upset about Trump and the images that they were putting out, though many of them were false, like the little girl who was separated from her mom and was crying. They put her on the cover of Time magazine when she was never really separated from her mom. She was right there. She was just put down for like a hot second, but she just kind of became the face. And the kids in the cages, Trump didn't build those cages. That was get built by like Obama and Biden and stuff. And they just flipped out every single day. But now that we are we're kind of far removed from the Trump presidency and got to experience things under the Biden administration, we are aware of the fact that things didn't work out too great. Things didn't work out too great, being really lax about the border, and it's going to require being very strict about the border once again. So I think folks will be very forgiving about the mass deportations and, you know, anxious to kind of see it happen. When you see these stories about these criminal aliens, which is illegal to, of course, cross the border illegally anyway. A lot of people are claiming that they're, you know, refugees and asylum and stuff, but they don't go through the port of entry. And there's a lot of people trying to get hearings and stuff, but they're taking advantage of our system. You see all of these, you know, big, strong, you know, young men coming. It kind of looks like an invasion as they come in their caravans and stuff, and people don't want it. And they're like, send them back. They don't belong here. So people are going to have way more goodwill, I think, toward Trump than they had in the first term, because, again, Trump was proven right. Trump was proven right on this. So they can make the mass deportation thing seem super, super scary. And I'm sure to a lot of people it is. But the American people overwhelmingly voted for it. And Trump was not shy. This isn't something that he's just like sliding into after, you know, the fact. It's something that he kept saying. They said it so much. They printed signs. Like, you go to a Trump rally and there's different signs that says like build the wall or Trump Vance or, you know, no tax on tips. Mass deportation was on the signs. So this is 100% with the Trump brand, with the Trump promise, and he overwhelmingly won. He won the popular vote, which I'm very happy that he did that, I'm sure. But he also got an electoral college landslide, you know, so he has a mandate. He has a mandate. This is something that was very important to him first time around. And, you know, I'm sure he's going to be able to make sure that he deports a lot of people. Now, is he going to get rid of 12 million people? I have never said that I believe that they're going to get rid of that many people. And even if he wanted to, and I'm not sure that he wants to get rid of that many people, but even if he wanted to, I do not see our system being able to crank out like that many deportations. I just don't see it happening. I definitely don't think that there should be any kind of pathway to citizenship, like, ever. If you came here illegally, you can go out and I don't know, try to get back to the back of the line. No, if you broke the law, especially if you're an adult and you broke the law, by all means, I guess maybe there's situations where you can stay and pay taxes into the United States of America and so on, but you being able to get a free ride and be rewarded for your bad behavior and achieve citizenship, no, I'm not for that. I'm not for that. And Trump was waffling in that in his first term at one point, and I hope that's not something that he considers. I hope that's not something that the people he's appointing to different levers of power push or whatever. And if they do, I hope that he pushes back, and other border hawks, you know, are like, nope, we cannot reward bad behavior. I said that so many times yesterday. We cannot reward bad behavior. And I have to look at those numbers at the end that they showed, like, about how many people Obama deported. Like, we know he deported a lot, but why did he deport so many more than everybody else? It's just pretty funny, especially because he did the Dreamer stuff, at the same time. So it's very interesting, very interesting. But yeah, they're calling Obama the deporter in chief. That was a talking point. Uh, People are analyzing the different effects that have led to the loss, and people are also analyzing Obama. And I think a big thing about Obama is that he ruined so much goodwill with people. Like, people had so many dreams and aspirations, like, about Obama, what he was going to do for the country, what he was going to do for Black people, minorities, and all this different kind of stuff. And it didn't materialize. Like, he pushed that he wasn't going to have war and other stuff like that. Of course, that did not happen. We had an expansion of war under Barack Obama. So people who had all these idealistic fantasies about politicians, it really, you know, he lost his shine, especially after this particular election. Joe Rogan and other people spoke about how they saw Obama really diminished because he got on TV and he lied about the Very Fine People hoax and Trump wanting to do a national abortion ban. And they're like, he's smart enough to know the truth, so he must be lying. And to see Obama, act like any other politician and lie, which Obama's told a lot of lies, but we'll forgive the people for being a little ignorant on the matter. But they're waking up and seeing like, oh my gosh, I was wrong about this guy. And Joe Rogan loved Obama. And he said, but now when I look at him, what I see is a liar. So I think you'll never kind of have an election. Maybe never is too strong of a term, or promise or prediction. But I think it's going to take a long time for Americans to get to that kind of place that they had when Obama was running. It was surreal for people. Not me. I never liked him, but it was surreal there were people who had like full-time jobs who would quit their jobs so they could volunteer to door knock and phone bank for Obama. He was a sweeping figure for politics and really an outlier for folks. And 2020 itself was an outlier, but Obama was also like an outlier candidate. And I just don't foresee people putting their heart on their sleeve like that again for Obama, especially after he didn't live up to the hype and did certain things that really cut against, I guess, really what his base wanted too, like being the person who had so many mass deportations as well. So anyway, now that I think about that graph, I have to look more into it. Like, what if some of those numbers for the deportations were also like the cutting into the Biden's numbers? How much deportation do they do like during COVID? They probably weren't doing like a ton. Like, people weren't really moving like that, though they were trying to stop people from coming into the country. But excuse me, I mean, there could have been people that they moved to deport that kind of that were kind of on the roster to be deported, but just kind of spilled over into the Biden administration. So I'd have to look more into that chart that she showed. Bethany said Obama went off the rails with this election. Him and his wife both went off the rails with this election, and I think they really damaged themselves and their brand and their legacy a lot. Again, Joe Rogan was like, Obama's a liar. Like, we see it now. He got up there and he told a blatant lie about this. And then Michelle, I think she had acted so poorly after the 2016 election, and she said that women voted against their own voice. And that was so offensive. Like, don't tell me what my own voice is. Why don't you actually have a conversation with me so you can at least hear me before you decide what I'm supposed to say, how I'm supposed to feel? Like, why don't we have a conversation before you assume things? Because these people aren't stupid. They aren't stupid, and they know better. Like, I'm sure they despise Trump and all that stuff, and don't want their legacy, whatever, thrown out of the window. And but they did some really scummy things. Like, Obama knew that Hillary Clinton was pushing that Russia collusion stuff. Like, he was briefed on it. Him and Biden and other officials in the Obama administration, they were briefed on this stuff before the election results and stuff. And then we still had to go into Trump's presidency with all this stupid speculation and people believing he was a Russian asset, assigned by Putin and all this stuff, when they knew from jump that it was a plot from Hillary Clinton. They knew from jump. I don't like the Obamas. I know some Republicans are like, why would you just disagree? But I don't like them. And it was so heinous for Michelle to get up and talk about abortion and pitch it like you don't want your child to have to go through an unexpected pregnancy and, derail their entire life, as if there aren't so many people, especially in the Black community, who have children and families and from, unmarried households. And that doesn't mean that their whole entire life gets derailed. And we shouldn't be telling people that your life is basically over if you get knocked up and you don't kill your baby. That's not the message that we should have. But that's what they're pushing to scare people over an issue that Donald Trump pretty much conceded. That's the crazy thing about it. In my opinion, they probably could have convinced more people to not go out and support him and vote for him if they were just like, yeah, he's really radical on the position now. And just kind of like, they should have had like a shadow campaign of people like doing a psyop saying like, oh, if they vote for Trump, it's going to permanently destroy the Republican Party and it's going to make it so, that they just throw all the pro-life stuff out of the window and he deserves to lose. And so, like, that should have been like their strategy. Now, there were people who were sincerely making that case, but if I was Democrat, I would have just been honest and hoped to peel off some evangelical votes. But they just lied again and again and again. And now you have women hysterical online because they think that if they have a miscarriage, they're going to die. Bethany, you're totally right. He went off the rails this election. Off the rails, both of them. They should be ashamed, but I don't think they have any. So, hopefully more people look back on Obama and realize that they were lied to. Now, I don't understand how people don't understand that Obama was a liar after, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your plan, you can keep your plan. That was a lie. That was a lie. And then the Obamacare architect came out and said, basically, the keeping things quiet from the American people is how you get stuff done and how they're able to achieve Obamacare. And if people had known how it really functioned, there's no way that it would have passed. So when that information came out, I'm assuming there's some people that are like, wait a second, but the population at large, I mean, he won Lie of the Year for if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. And by the way, Obamacare premiums like spiking right before the 2016 election. I'm sure that had a lot to do with the fact that Donald Trump was able to eke out that win in 2016, because those were some small victories, very small margins of victory in 2016. In Michigan, it was 10,000 votes. Yeah, I'm sure if they could have held that off a little while longer, they would have. That was like devastating for them. But they wanted to push that Obamacare. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. I really hope that we can get back to a point where, again, that we don't have to worry so much about who wins and who loses. We all want our guy to win or our girl to win. Obviously, we want that. But we should not have to fear that we will not get relief from different hurricane relief, disaster relief, if we support the wrong person. That should not be happening in America. And if I were Biden, I would really, really want to make sure that you got to the bottom of this so people could have faith in our institutions. But unfortunately, people don't. But I hope that through the Trump administration, at least that people can restore some of their faith in the system. And I was asked on election night by some French reporters who were at the at the party in Michigan, and they were asking me, can America unify? Can Trump unify Americans? And I said, he can, but they have to want to be unified. And I started talking about how I went to the inauguration in 2017, and Trump gave a really nice speech. But when I got back to the hotel and heard CNN talk about it, they're like, that was dark and divisive. And they were just explaining and describing the speech in a way that was not the feel of it at all, was not the feel of the people on the ground. It shouldn't have been the lens that they interpreted for the rest of America. And they continuously kept doing that with different Trump speeches, talking about how dark and whatever it is, when he's saying like everybody has potential, born and unborn, and are God's children, and just really great stuff. And then they talk about how evil it basically was, because they wanted to skew the public against him. So people have to want to be united, and I don't see evidence that that is the case with a lot of folks on the left or the mainstream media, as they're pointing fingers in all the wrong directions about the loss. And it just doesn't seem like they're going to get any better, but we'll keep praying that they learned a thing or two. So, anyway, thank you guys. See some people in the chat were biased for Christy. No. Again, I just don't know why. I understand that it's like farm stuff, but what a thing to put in the book. Because when I was like reading about it, it sounded pretty detailed. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost to stream and run it, all that stuff. So if you guys can support, I appreciate you. And you guys can also check out different merch, like this I voted for Trump and all I got was historic peace stills, gas under $2, no new wars, etc., etc. And this lousy t-shirt, so that we can bring that one back. We also got the goat hoodies and goat t-shirts and so on. One thing about Trump, there's people who are very rabid in support of him, but there's also so much negativity that is being spewed toward people who voted for him. So even though you may not be like a big Trumper, you feel like sometimes putting on a MAGA hat just to go outside and be indignant to the whole world. Like, try me. And I'm kind of getting to that point, because people have lost their minds and just like talking sideways, and people were willing to do online. And I saw a crazy video, I'll have to show it to you guys tomorrow, of a woman who ended up getting arrested. But there's this white liberal lady who attacked this black woman who was, out supporting Trump or whatever. And she like grabbed her face and at first she said that she told the police officer that she had like grabbed her chin, and the woman was like, "Now she like punched me in the chin." She's like, it didn't hurt too much, but like, she's like, what if I was someone who wanted to like escalate the situation and get physical with her back and stuff? Like, that would have been terrible. And she was like an older white woman who just had the audacity to put her hands on somebody else because she was upset about the support that she had for folks. And people just better calm down. They better just calm down. Talk to your neighbor. Most of the stuff you don't like about Trump isn't even real. It's not even real. Most of it's not real. No, most of it's not real. Please go educate yourself. Go listen to what Trump actually said. Go actually. Sometimes people have to go actually read the transcripts instead of like listening to him, because they have such a bias, such bad TDS, that if they hear his voice, they're already triggered. Sometimes you just go read the transcript of what he said, and maybe you'll start to get a clue. Like when the Fine People hoax started to be debunked, I think a large part of that was because of Scott Adams, and he was sharing around the transcript on Twitter and really saying like, hey, this is a hoax. Like, Trump did not call neo-Nazis fine people. Because at first the situation seemed so contentious that people didn't even want to stick up for Trump. And if you did stick up for Trump, people came at you pretty hard. Even people on the right would come at you hard. They're like, no, this is just disgusting. Like, Like, but doesn't he have a point about like it's wrong to just kind of tear down all these statues and stuff? And Trump was like saying stuff that was near prophetic. He's like, if you tear down this, like, are people going to come after Washington next? And we know during the BLM stuff, people were, you know, vandalizing all kinds of statues. So he wasn't wrong. Trump ages well as far as the things that he says and the accusations that he makes. A lot of things do age well for what he says. Anyway, I don't want to do a second closing. God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.